Hi guys, Ray Qureshi here, and thank you for joining me for another video. I'm actually bringing back a series I haven't done for quite a few months. It's when I go through my fans' favorite 11 from their supported team through a certain era. So I'd like to welcome right now FPL Casuals, FPL Juicer for Chelsea, FPL Way creator, and naively has brought me on board. He has no idea what he's doing. I'd like to welcome Aiden. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thanks, Ray. Thanks for having me. Real great intro there. It sounded like a heavyweight champion there. Made me sound like a boxer.
The reigning, defending. Yeah. So I did a quick intro before I brought you in regards to what the kind of format is of this kind of mini series I have. I haven't done one in a few months. So what I did prior, for everyone eventually watching, hopefully, is I gave Aiden a short list of about 40 players, and he had to rattle it down to about 3 options per position. And one thing I realized is, my goodness me, during the Roman Abramovich era, Chelsea have had some absolutely incredible FPL Premier League greats. I mean, there's some players who are era-defining in the Premier League. So before we start on that list, and Aiden did kick my butt a couple of times. He tried to add a couple of sneaky ones in there, but I didn't let him. It's just going to be for the Roman Abramovich era, which has now been, I think, 18 years. I think it's 2003.
Yeah, long time.
So before we start, buddy,
yeah,
please tell me a bit about the history of supporting Chelsea. What made you support them?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Ray. And do you know what? I've been supporting Chelsea ever since I started enjoying playing and watching football. My family aren't necessarily from London, to be fair. I don't have any kind of tight connections to the area. However, ever since I've wanted to play football and ever since I've been interested in watching it, I've always supported Chelsea. Always looked up to their players. Always had their shirts when I was a kid. Always, when you're playing a Sunday league game and you kind of want to emulate the style of certain players, they were always them. So yeah, that's kind of the history behind it. Been playing football for 17 years, been watching it for 17 years, ever since I was about 6 or 7. So yeah, ever since then, it's been my club, really.
Who were you on the playground when you used to score goals?
I started as a striker, a forward player. I was quite small, compact, quite quick as well when I was younger. So, the likes of Drogba, Robin as well, and even like the midfield players, Lampard, obviously. I now play left back, so I'm a little bit too old to be trying to emulate these players. But yeah, I've kind of worked backwards as I've got older.
When you start supporting a team, you usually attach yourself to one player. Especially when you're younger, you almost follow more the player than the actual team initially. Like for me, it was Ian Wright.
Yeah.
As an Arsenal fan, who was it for you as a Chelsea fan?
I mean, for me, the real standout growing up was obviously Lampard. He was a highest goal scoring midfielder in Premier League history. He could do a little bit of everything, really. He'd be back in the box, winning headers in corners, and he'd be up the other end of the pitch, starting counter attacks and scoring important goals. So certainly, he was on the back of a lot of my England and Chelsea shirts as a kid. But being a striker and wanting to score goals, it was. I won't give too much away, but there was a certain striker that was always close to my heart as a Chelsea fan growing up.
Understood. So Adrian Mutu, yeah, got it. Before we go on to 11, what were your thoughts when Abramovich first came to Chelsea?
So, kind of looking at my younger face, I was quite young when he joined the club. So I was probably too busy doing keepy-ups in the back garden to really keep tracks of what he was doing when I was young. However, mixed, for me personally, mixed feelings with him being the Chelsea owner. Obviously, there's been some very bad press around him, but there's also been some very good press around him as well. So, I think, he's been great in terms of what he's been able to achieve with the way he runs the club, with the management turnover. But also, I think any club would be lucky to have someone like him, because he's not afraid to invest, and he knows that if you invest in the club in the right way, you're going to win trophies. So it's a mixed bag. I do have some hard feelings against him trying to get us out of Stamford Bridge. There was a lot of history and heritage at Stamford Bridge, obviously. However, I think there was a few bits and bobs that went around. He was trying to sell shares to voters that were going to vote in favour to leave the club, but obviously it never happened. So some mixed feelings there, but overall he's been a very good asset to the Chelsea brand and to the club itself. So I can only really thank him for that.
Hi, Aiden. Sorry about that, man.
That's right, no worries.
I have absolutely no idea what happened, but what I'll do, I'll chop it together.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you don't mind, if we can do the history of support again, pal. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, of course.
Roman Abramovich, sorry, specifically.
Yeah, so in terms of Roman Abramovich, I think there's a couple of mixed feelings around him. Ever since he started at the club, I was quite young to remember. I was probably too busy doing keepy-ups to remember what he kind of had as an impact in terms of the start of his reign at Chelsea. But, if we look at the positives, his investment, his dedication to the club, his obvious personal links, we see him when he was able to be in the country, we see him at games pretty much every week celebrating goals. You don't necessarily see too much of that nowadays. There was a couple of mixed feelings when he tried to move us out of Stamford Bridge that, things that, he tried to do to maybe swing the vote in his area, because the people of Chelsea, the Chelsea supporters actually own the land the pitch is on.
Yeah.
So ultimately, when that happened, there was a couple of bad press around him. But other than that, I think in terms of his investment, his dedication, his loyalty to wanting to win trophies as well is second to none as a owner. So I think anyone would be lucky to have him as their chairman and their owner of the club. So yeah, can only thank him really.
Yeah, I felt like after Chelsea finally got the Holy Grail in 2012, I thought like maybe he'd start to wane off a little bit in regards to financial interest in Chelsea, but you can tell he loves the club with all the money he puts in, isn't it? And
yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
And I think it's similar to, City fans won't like me saying this, but their owners come in and their ultimate goal is to win the Champions League, right? That's kind of the unspoken thing at Man City. They're happy with the league trophies, but ultimately they want that UCL ultimately. So when we won it in 2012, you're absolutely right. There may have been a switch kind of on a two-piece coin in terms of the ambition of the club, but it's only seemed to really have grown. And I think this, I was obviously watching the 2012 one, and I was again still fairly young, but I knew exactly what was going on. So that one probably felt sweeter than the most recent one, but they're both as, you see the smile on my face when we're speaking about them, they bring joy. And it's so great we can sit here and say that we're the Champions League winners. So I'm just over the moon with it, to be fair.
Yeah, I'll move on swiftly before you break my heart as an Arsenal fan. So thank you for saying that. Anyway, we'll get straight
in the Champions League. You've had some good wins in the Champions League in terms of matches. You've got far. You got to the final. Just haven't got over that last hurdle yet.
You've put the dag a little bit further, but thank you for trying to keep me sweet. But anyway, let's get to I know. Let's get to the team now. So we'll start in goal. Aiden went for 4-3-3 formation, which has been the most prevalent since Roman Abramovich's kind of time at the club. So if we start in goal now, so the options we have: Cech, Courtois, Mendy. Aiden, if you give me your choice every single time with an explanation, that'd be much appreciated. So I think I know the answer, but please.
Yeah, there's absolutely no question here. We probably won't spend too much time here. It's obviously Petr Cech. I think I would just be absolutely mental if I went with either of the other two. I think Mendy's obviously a product of Petr Cech's recruitment. So we can only really expect good things from him in the future.
Yeah.
But we're talking about possibly top two greatest Premier League keepers in Petr Cech. He's got 443 appearances for the club, 202 clean sheets in the Premier League.
Oh,
He's got the most Premier League clean sheets out of any keeper, any player. So to go with him is a must. And just before we go through the team, I wanted to just touch on kind of my direction with the choices here. I looked at it.
please.
I tried to take as much romantic feelings out of these players as possible, and I wanted to go for kind of my personal memories and highlights. But also, if I was putting this team against the best team in the world, I want this team to be a functioning team, if that makes sense, not just your typical dream team where the players might not gel. I've tried to kind of put a real solid 4-3-3 here together.
Yeah.
While also adding a little bit of my emotion and feelings towards it. So 4 Golden Gloves, the most Premier League clean sheets, as we've said, 4 Premier League titles. I think, yeah, no question there's Petr Cech in goal for me.
100%. 100%. We move on to right back now.
Sure.
This is perhaps a little bit tougher because all 3 of them have performed very well.
Yeah, this might be the first spanner in the works, and I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible here, right? With obviously, as this content's going to be viewed by not just Chelsea fans but other people as well. So a bit of a controversial pick here, but I've gone for Ivanovic. Reasons being is, I'll go through his stats again: 377 league appearances for Chelsea, 88 clean sheets, 22 goals, and 20 assists.
So many goals. So many assists, yeah.
It was such a hard decision between him and Azpilicueta, but if you actually look at what they've won, I'll go through Ivanovic's kind of trophy cabinet: 3 Premier Leagues, 3 FA Cups, a Champions League, a Europa League, and 2 Super Cups. Like, come on, you just can't compete with that. And also, Azpilicueta came the year after 2012, so technically they're at 1 Champions League each. And I've kind of looked at the trophies won as well as to kind of the contribution towards the club during the Abramovich era. Abramovich is one of those kind of unsung heroes that kind of fell under the radar a little bit during our most successful periods, but he's a player that really does kind of he's got a soft spot in my heart. He was such a great player, such a great servant to the club as well, and very loyal. So for me, it's got to be Ivanovic, but I do love Azpilicueta as well. It was a very, very close. Paulo Ferreira, I was a little bit young. I looked into his stats. Obviously a fantastic player. I've actually seen him score live as well against Brazil, which was quite weird in a friendly for Portugal. But for me, it's Branislav Ivanovic.
Love it. On the left.
Oh God, easy one here. Ashley Cole. I've not even written anything about Ashley Cole because he was at his peak. You can't, other nationalities might argue, but as an England fan, as an Englishman, Ashley Cole was one of the best left backs in the world at the time. He could do everything. He was that, when you see him on the team sheet, you think, we've got a great chance of keeping a clean sheet and potentially him getting an attack in return as well. I did look into his loyalty a little bit, obviously with Arsenal as well. But, for me, if he was up there with like the likes of, at the time, other players that were the same level as Ashley Cole, I would still pick Ashley Cole every day of the week. And I love him as a kind of pundit now because, you can look at him and really think this guy's been at the top level. He knows exactly what he's speaking about. And he was a very loyal servant at Chelsea as well. So, yeah, without a doubt, Ashley Cole.
And you can count on one hand how many times someone actually got past him.
It was either the ball
incredible
or the
defensively.
both. It was never both. That's a phrase my granddad used to say when he used to play. He said, Aiden, if the ball goes past me, the man ain't. If the man goes past me, the ball ain't. So, for me, it's Ashley Cole, without a doubt. Obviously, I looked into the other 2. Chilwell's still very fresh. He's got fantastic potential. I just don't think he's anywhere near Ashley Cole's level right now. And obviously Wayne Bridge, great servant to the club, just wasn't again at that level that I could really put above Ashley Cole, to be honest.
Fantastic.
How do you feel he was for Arsenal? What were your opinions on him at Arsenal?
I think Ashley Cole is the best left back to ever play in the Premier League. I thought he was at Arsenal, and then he became that when he went to Chelsea. Yeah. I think he's kept the same level of excellence the whole time.
Yeah.
I think there's absolutely no doubt about that whatsoever. As an individual, perhaps there can be question marks with the way he left Chelsea. Personal stuff, but I don't really care about that because I'm grading the footballer here. And that's why I said to you, how many times did anyone ever get past him? I maybe remember Robin just a couple of times, but Cristiano Ronaldo, I don't think ever got past him during the time that he was playing. So absolutely fantastic player. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the CDM position because I'm still kind of updating the centre backs. So, and then I'll let you do your spiel on each player whilst I update.
Absolutely. So for me, this was actually quite a hard decision. I love all three of these players with 90% of my heart. Jorginho being, obviously, he's had one of the best seasons, I think you could probably argue, in recent times. Won the Champions League, top 4 with Chelsea, and he's gone on to win the Euros. Yeah. And I just can't. I've ran out of superlatives for Jorginho, and I'll be first to hold my hands up. This start of the season under Lampard was it was questionable, and I'm very unbiased. I'm very open-minded, and I'm the first person to say, do you know what? I was wrong. With Jorginho, I was definitely wrong. I couldn't see his qualities until someone told me how he plays. I'd researched the player a little bit more, and then I was speaking to a few Chelsea fans the other day. When you don't hear a lot about Jorginho during the game, he's had a great game. Mm-hmm. He's that metronome that keeps the ball moving. And again, a little bit like Ivanovic, he kind of slips under the radar a little bit because he plays it simple. He doesn't do anything over the top. However, since Tuchel's come in, what I've really liked is he's been a little bit more expressive in his passing. He's been passing forward a little bit more and breaking the lines, while also being an absolute animal in terms of winning the ball back, in terms of interceptions.
That's right.
I didn't get it right now, but I tweeted out about his stats during the Euros, and it was just a joke. But we didn't go with Jorginho, and I was kind of singing his praises here. We didn't go with Jorginho, but I wanted to give him a mention because he's had a fantastic season, and if he plays like that for another 5 or 6 seasons, then we're winning the Champions League 5 or 6 seasons in a row because he's brilliant.
So who would you pick? For me, Makelele and Kante are up there with the top 5 breakers, CDMs ever in the Premier League. So this is a tough one.
It's for me, again, it's Kante. It's just Kante. Just Kante for me.
Why's that?
Because he's the sort of player that's going to have that position named after him.
Makelele had the position named after him.
I totally agree, and I was just about to mention that.
Okay, sorry.
That's fine. I just think the way football's evolved and the pace of the game now, and the tactical elements and the nutritional elements makes the game a lot harder these days in terms of physicality, in terms of how fit you've got to be. And this is no knock on any player kind of 10 years ago, but there was people turning up after weekend benders, at the end of the day, being on beers. But this game is so much different. The pace is different. The physicality is different, and Kante is it's just unbelievable. Again, it's kind of like you just don't. I'm just speechless at how good he is. Like, you can't put into words how valuable he is for your club if you were to have him. Unfortunately, Arsenal never will. Or we might sell him to you when he's like 38, past it, and he just does Agent Kante for us, like Willian has. But sorry, that was a bit harsh. Kante, 218 appearances for Chelsea, 2-time English champion with Leicester, obviously. And do you know what? I know this isn't a Leicester video, but I had to take that into account as well. I had to take his achievements with Leicester into account because 5,000 to 1 odds, and he was the best. I think he was the best player in the Premier League that year, right? Or maybe Mahrez was, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Kante was for the next season when he joined Chelsea and he won the league under Conte.
Yeah, come on. He's been excellent. And he did have a little bit of a dip in his form when Lampard joined.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Let's not forget that. But I think that's Lampard kind of, feeling out process. It was one of Lampard's first jobs. Obviously, he was at Derby, but it's a completely different atmosphere when you're at your boyhood club, Chelsea. He's also a World Cup winner. Now, I don't know if Makelele was for his respective nationality. However, you've got to take that into account as well. For me, it's Kante.
Okay, brilliant. Well, excellent, by the way. I mean, each one of your points are extremely thought-provoking, and I almost agree with all of them, really. But let's go back to the centre defence, which for me, out of all the positions you guys have had, I actually feel this one is quite easy for me. But of course, I'm not the expert here. You are.
Yeah. Do you know what? I love Chelsea. I'm no expert. Let's just put that out there. I love football and I love watching Chelsea. However, there's people out there that know a lot more about it than me. However, I've watched and played football for quite a while now, so I do hope my opinion kind of makes sense. But
It does.
Let's start with the least controversial option here. It's obviously Rudiger. No, I'm joking. It's Terry. Terry is, when you think about Premier League greats, name another one other than Terry. You've got the likes, you've maybe got 5 players in that category, of players that epitomise their club, that epitomise their position. And, Terry in his prime was a very long prime, given that, because he played well into his 30s at the top level. Yep. He would go into any single defence in the world and he would make it better. Let's not mess around here. He would make any team in the world better, stronger, more compact. And he has so many qualities that I admire as a person in terms of his leadership, in terms of, just his knowledge and his football kind of nous. I'm not going to speak too much on Terry because I don't need to explain his achievements as a Chelsea fan to any other Chelsea fan. But, as someone who loves football, you can appreciate John Terry to the very highest order. He's the first centre-back in this team, for sure.
Yep.
And
his partner?
Yeah, so, this one, again, it was thought-provoking. I think even Alex, you think about some of the games he had for Chelsea. He was a little bit of like a David Luiz, where he was kind of hot and cold. But in those big games, he just seemed to turn up and have a 10 out of 10 performance. And, sometimes he'd get man of the match in a game that we've won 3-0 or like kind of 2-0 and kind of, but he was so good. He could do everything. He was just one of those old school centre-backs that, you don't really see nowadays. He was just very gritty, very kind of, he loved the challenge, which I absolutely love as well. But for me, it boiled down to Carvalho and William Gallas here. I do want to give a mention to Cahill, but I think you can't, with Cahill, he was one of those players that needed a commanding centre-back next to him. I don't think he was that kind of through and through leader. So he needed a Terry to kind of stand with him and really bring the best out of him. With me, I think Carvalho, 210 performances for Chelsea, 63 clean sheets, the loyalty to the clubs there as well, 3 Premier Leagues, 3 FA Cups, a Super Cup and 2 League Cups. With, playing in his prime with John Terry, I think they were both just absolute gargantuan in that centre-back partnership. So for me, it's Carvalho. But Gallas was a close second. But for me, if I'm lining it up, that partnership of Carvalho and Terry was just disgusting. It was absolutely disgusting to watch as well. It was brilliant. And again, it's just a little bit like yourself. If you'll have those 2 Arsenal centre backs that if they were on the team sheet, you thought we're going to win tonight. We're going to win 100%. This game.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I mean, those were the 2 I would have gone for as well. But so far, absolutely brilliant. You can't make a bad team here. It's going to be difficult to make one. So let's get to
the centre mids. Obviously, one's obvious.
There you go.
We won't mention it. Nice little caveat there. Nice little move on to the
segue. Beautiful.
Yeah. The other one. This was probably the hardest decision of them all, to be honest. The other centre mid, and this is where I really had to separate. Who would I want playing in this team against the likes of Real Madrid in their prime, Barcelona in their prime, and who would I choose romantically as a Chelsea fan who I've absolutely loved? I'll give you both options as well and just kind of give you my thought process behind it. First one's Lampard, obviously. Let's not spend too much time on this one. Was probably, in my opinion, slightly biased, I suppose. probably the best Premier League player to ever, the best Premier League midfielder to ever play football, in my opinion. There's obviously people who are going to contest that, but as a Chelsea fan, most Premier League goals from a midfielder, until someone beats that record, I really don't think anyone can convince me otherwise. So yeah, Lampard is obviously the first one. Again, he's a player like your Rio Ferdinands, like your Patrick Vieiras, that really epitomise their club. And you're not gonna. They're like a once in a lifetime player. Lampard is for Chelsea. And there's another young man on here that may fill his boots. Fingers crossed. He's not going to get a mention today, but yeah, Mason Mount. There we go. We mentioned him.
Now, who's his partner? Now, this is the nitty-gritty.
You know what? When I first made the team, when you sent me across about the 40 picks, I kind of went straight romantic. And the guy who I had in first was Essien.
May I provide some feedback?
Yeah, go ahead.
Michael Essien is probably my favourite ever Chelsea player. I think he's incredible. When he was signed from Lyon, I remember watching him at Lyon, and I was like, and at that time, Arsenal were quite a top team. I was like, that's the player I want. That's the player I want. So when he went to Chelsea, he absolutely hit the ground running. I was at that game where he scored that equaliser against Arsenal, where he ripped it from like 30-odd yards. And again, when Chelsea got to the Champions League final in 2008, you didn't have a right back, and Essien was playing right back. It just shows you how complete a footballer he was. So when I picked a Chelsea team, and I think I shared it with you, I put Essien in straight away. But perhaps his numbers don't match, if that makes sense. But I feel when he's playing, he runs the midfield.
Exactly. And do you know what? You're absolutely right. I think, the memories you just mentioned there, they bring a smile to my face. The goal against Arsenal was something that will live with me for the rest of my life. So for me, he was kind of my romantic pick. He was the player who just stuck in my mind ever since I was up and was yo,
please continue. Sorry again. Essien. I made my feedback.
Yeah. He was kind of the one I went straight to in terms of the romantic feelings for him, not in any kind of way, but I mean, just the memories, again, I hate to keep repeating myself, but he's a player that if he's playing, you've got a 5 to 10% better chance of winning that game. Definitely. Just because of, can you imagine him and Kante if they were in a midfield? That is like, and do you know why this is something quite important actually? Do you know why you have to imagine that? Is because they're two generational talents. They're not two players that come around that often to where they can play together. But if they did, there's nothing you were doing to stop that midfield doing exactly what they wanted to you. I don't care who you name in the midfield against Essien and Kante and Lampard. You are not beating Chelsea that day. It's just not happening. However, let's get away from the romantic side of things and talk about the actual person I've put in here. Put in Michael Ballack.
Why's that?
Because he had more appearances for Chelsea than he did his German counterparts, which I feel is quite an important point to raise here because he loved the club. And you see it when he does punditry on Chelsea. He still loves Chelsea. He's still got that really deep connection to the club. And for me, that loyalty, considering how popular he was in Germany as well, for the national team, for him to play more games for Chelsea than Bayer Leverkusen, Bayern Munich, it just tells me that he loves that club so much. 167 appearances, 25 goals, 24 assists. He could do a little bit of everything. He was back in the box defending. He was kind of like, breaking up the pitch to start these attacks. And he was just an iconic player. And he's again a player that kids my age were looking up to in that German midfield, in that Chelsea midfield. So I think as a balance, Kante, Lampard, Ballack is kind of like the perfect, nice kind of balance of midfield as to where you'd want things. You've got that kind of box-to-box midfielder with Ballack. You've got that kind of attacking midfielder with Lampard, and you've got that player who's going to break the play up with Kante. I think that's the perfect recipe for a title-winning midfield, if I'm being honest.
Perfect. Let's go to the right wing.
This is where the other controversial pick comes up. Now, I'm doing this purely from my own point of view, right? I'm not trying to take into account anyone else's opinions here.
It's completely you, Aiden. Whatever team you want.
Yeah. And I had kind of wondered, will I get some stick for picking Willian? So I picked Willian.
Wow.
Do you know
he was
what?
amazing for Chelsea, though. He was absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
And you know what? My partner's family, they're Chelsea supporters as well, and they absolutely hated Willian towards the back end of his kind of Chelsea career. But if you look at this guy's kind of contribution, got his numbers here. I know he's not a fan favourite. I know he's kind of like a, only the way I look at it, only real Chelsea fans appreciate how Willian played the game and the kind of things that he brought to the. He could do that defensive work. You could rely on him in terms of going forward, carrying the ball 20 yards, beating a man. If we're kind of taking away all the negative connotations of Willian, he was one of the best one-on-one attackers in the league at the time. He'd go round a man, he could put a cross in, he could shoot from outside the box. He's got great finishing. 339 appearances in the Premier League, 63 goals, 63 assists for Chelsea. Them numbers they're not spoken about enough, in my opinion. He was two-time Chelsea Player of the Year, by the way, Players Player of the Year. I know one of them was in our slightly bad season when we finished 10th, and he was pretty much the only bloke that turned up every week and actually put in a decent shift. It was a real kind of regrouping. Kind of, I think we'd won the title the year before as well. We come
off Jose,
really bad season for us. And Willian was obviously the shining star in that. He got 14 goals, I think maybe just over 10 assists. But the fact that he was two-time Chelsea Players Player of the Year kind of screams that we're kind of missing a trick here, and the players kind of appreciated him more than the fans did, I think. So, Robin, exactly what is said on the tin with Robin. He's cutting in on the left foot. You ain't stopping him, and he's putting it top bins. He only scored 19 goals for Chelsea, though, in just over 100 performances. So, for me, again, Mata, bit of a traitor in my eyes, to be honest. I can't. And again, I'm kind of bringing my feelings into it too much, maybe. But he was a brilliant player. Obviously, he won the Champions League with Chelsea. But for me, if you go to United after going to Chelsea, you're not a true and through blue in my eyes. So it's Willian. I know Willian's done the same. But it's been like Agent Willian, if you think about it. He's gone to Arsenal. He's been a little bit, But for me, he was a great player. He was definitely undervalued at Chelsea. And like you mentioned at the start of this piece, he was a great player for Chelsea. I don't see anything wrong with picking him out of those three players. And I'd want him in my team with the other two players I've added. So that's why I've gone for him.
Perfect. On the left?
Ah, God, here we go. Again, easy one here. And I say easy, but it wasn't actually, because I had to do a little bit of work around, even Joe Cole. Malouda's numbers for Chelsea, they're really good. Yes, really good. And again, he was kind of one of those players that didn't really get a lot of credit. Same as like Kalou. I know a lot of people think, Kalou, but if you actually look at his contribution and his actual highlights for Chelsea, he was a good player. He was a great player, and he contributed a lot to the team. And he was kind of a similar kind of player to Malouda. You kind of knew what you got with him. He was going to take a man on. He was going to try and cross the ball into the box for the likes of, won't say any names. But for me, it's a really easy one here. It's Eden Hazard. I've not written anything. I've got it completely blank for Hazard. I don't need to convince anyone that Hazard's a good pick. He was just, again, no words ran out of superlatives for Hazard. He was obviously just like the first name on the team sheet for a very long time. And I just can't, I'm not going to sit here and try and tell you anything else, because he would be in anyone's, I think, last 10 years, best Premier League team. He was a real game changer. Like, you can't really say that about too many players. You've got the likes of Ronaldo, Messi, and I think he was very much at his peak one of the players that could kind of push that level to the closest on his day. On his day, he would win a game on his own. Yeah. And I think only really Ronaldo, Messi, Mbappe, Neymar, the players like that can really do that. Kevin De Bruyne as well. He's that kind of echelon player. And to the fact that we got him for 30 million, 30 something million maybe.
Yeah.
I remember the day he tweeted out that he's going to join the European champions, and yeah, ever since then the rest is history, I think they say, right? But yeah. Created memories that will last with me forever. Not a lot of players can do that. Only 3 players in this team have really kind of created memory. No, sorry, 4, including Terry, Lampard, and the other player we're going to come on to in a minute. He kind of, again, epitomises his position. He gives you kind of goosebumps. That goal against, I think it was West Ham, the one where he just made it look too easy, slotted it in. Goal against Arsenal as well, where he brushed that man off. Don't know who it was. He brushed him off, got him rolling. Rolling about 20 yards on the floor. His centre of gravity, his balance, just crazy. You can see him struggling to kind of put together anything that I can't already say about him. So it's Eden Hazard for sure. Any Chelsea fan would say that.
100%. Fantastic. And then we get to the guy who is going to spear this incredible team and attack especially. I think it's unbelievably obvious, but the other players who are also in that list deserve some respect because they were fantastic football players. But before we get on to the other 2, you don't even have to mention them if you don't want. I think you've got to go to the one man who I actually would rather have than Thierry Henry at Arsenal. And I've got a lot of stick for that.
Yeah.
So please, Aiden.
I've always said about this striker, I think he still holds the most goals scored in Wembley Cup finals in the new Wembley. Still.
Yes. Yep.
When people say big name player, the first person that comes to your head is Didier Drogba, in my opinion. If you're talking about a big game player in the Premier League, I can't name any other big name player in the Premier League that done it like Drogba. Probably the biggest game player in world football at the time. You know, you think about every single time he rose to the occasion in those gritty derbies in the cup against Tottenham, Arsenal, those gritty Champions League nights that we needed a goal. We needed someone to save us and pull us through. It was Didier Drogba. Now, I will touch on the other 2. Costa didn't stay at us long enough, in my opinion. Absolutely love Diego Costa. I'm not going to swear, but I love, you know, the housery he brought to the football, the pitch. Yeah. He was just one of a kind. He was kind of like that likeable Luis Suarez, if that makes sense, because Luis Suarez took it to a different level where you just absolutely hated him because he was just really unsportsmanlike. But
unless he was in your team, isn't it? Diego Costa, you love to have him, hate to play against him.
He was that player that would like grab you and like rip your shirt and like pull your shorts and just kind of do anything to get that 1% advantage on you if he was against you. And I absolutely love that. I was kind of that sort of player growing up. I was a little bit mouthy. I wanted to gain an advantage on my teammates the best way possible. And again, growing up, I was a little bit older at the time, but Costa was just someone that you wanted to emulate. Fantastic finisher, fantastic game IQ. Hasselbank again. I actually met him the other day. It was very strange.
I remember, yeah.
I was
so jealous.
Having a coffee. I can't remember where I was. I think I was in Woking. And he walked past, and the guy that owns the coffee shop, he's like, "Yeah, he's always in it." I was like, "I'm going to go quickly say hello and tell him how much of a fan I was." So I didn't ask him for a photo. I'm not that kind of person that really does that. I know he kind of wants to get on with his day, but lovely man nonetheless, and a great footballer for our club. So massive respect to him and Diego Costa. Just to touch on Drogba again, 381 appearances in the Premier League, 164 goals and 87 assists. Like you said, if you're picking kind of a Premier League strike force, he's in your top 5 picks. I don't think everyone will pick him because you've got the likes of Shearer, you've got the likes of obviously like Harry Kane now, you've got the likes of Henry, you've got the likes of Van Persie, Van Nistelrooy. I could sit here and name loads of them. He's going to be in your top 5. You know, you're going to have a debate about whether Drogba makes the team or not. One of the best strikers the Premier League's ever seen. He could do everything. He could run in behind. He could have his back to goal. He could shoot from long distance. Goals against Tottenham, Everton. If you remember the goal against Everton, where he just hit it from about 40 yards out, outside of his boot, lobbed the keeper. It was normal for him. That was normal for him. And I remember growing up, and I definitely took things from Drogba's game and inserted it into my game. And just to end on the point, he's probably created the best memory of my Chelsea life is the header against Bayern Munich in the 88th minute. You can't top that for me. Even the Havertz goal doesn't top that for me. That header against being his last game in a Chelsea shirt. I don't know what you've got to say about that, but it's spine-tingling stuff.
I think Drogba also was playing when Chelsea were kind of having so many issues in regards to management, in regards to players going, players coming. If he had the kind of solidity in the squad and the team and the club like someone like Thierry Henry did, imagine how many goals Drogba would have got. He had to adapt with different managers, Jose Mourinho, Ancelotti, whoever else there was, Di Matteo and stuff like that. He never had a fixed structure for more than like 2 or 3 years. And one of the reasons that I would go for Drogba than Henry, if you gave me one player, is because, quite right what you said, when it was a big game, Didier Drogba performed pretty much every single time. FA Cup finals, League Cup final. That Champions League was the competition of Drogba. I mean, if Drogba didn't do what he did in that competition, the header he scored against Bayern Munich is one of the finest headers I've ever seen in my life. I don't know how he got that much power from that angle. And Neuer, he was peak Neuer back then. Neuer was the best keeper ever in the world at that point. And then the winning penalty. Didier Drogba is, man, I got a man crush on the guy, dude.
Yeah, and I think, to nestle that header against the best keeper in the world at the time, near post, you've got to have a set of stones to be able to do that. You've got to have a real set of stones to be able to rise to the occasion. And I compare him to, again, a little bit off topic here, but you compare him to kind of the same kind of personality as someone like a Conor McGregor, someone like a Tyson Fury that can really kind of shine under the greatest lights, in their respective sporting atmospheres. He was one of those people that the smaller the game, the smaller the performance, the bigger the game, the better Drogba turned up on the day. And he definitely used those big games as fuels to really kick on and make Chelsea great. And I love Lampard, I love Terry, I love all of the players that I've named on this video. However, Drogba is my favourite Chelsea player ever, in my opinion, and in my heart. He's that's it. I'll just end on that. It's all good.
Fantastic. So before the signal completely goes, I think we've been struggling a bit today, you and I, so apologies for everyone who'll be watching. But I'm sure the audio you can hear clearly. This is brutally honest, I know, but who would your captain be for this quite incredible football team that you've been able to make?
It's got to be Terry. Terry and Czech. I think Lampard could obviously be second or third in that list, but through and through leadership, Czech's gone on to be high up in the club now, so I think that only rings true as to how good of a leader he was. So yeah, Terry for me.
Fantastic. And before we wrap it up, first of all, Aiden, thank you so much for coming on, man. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I love it.
Apologies from the Wi-Fi on my end and now yours as well. It's been a lot of fun. But I know I already put it in the ticker, but please, how can they follow you, pal?
Yeah, so you can follow me first and foremost on a project I started in game week 27 last year that Ray is so kindly helping us out with now. First and foremost, follow at the FPL Way. We produce content every game week. We've got content coming up for the new season, and we've got some really exciting bits and bobs coming in the not so distant future. If you want to follow my personal account where things are a little bit more biased, a little bit more uncensored, then give me a follow at fplcasuals on Twitter. Thank you.
Fantastic. I'll make sure that all the links are in the description on the video, guys. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you again, Aiden, for joining. And I'm extremely excited to be on board with the FPL Way. The guys are all quality individuals, and I hope, obviously, I can bring some kind of value.
Maybe we do a little video in the lead up to the first game week. Maybe we do a team review or something.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having me, Ray. Thanks for the viewers as well. Appreciate your time.
100%. Thank you very much, everyone, and take care.
Take care.